everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. This is going to be the astro weather for the week of July 10th through the 17th, but I guess big headlines would be full moon in Capricorn conjunct Pluto. So the majority of this video is going to be about that. As you guys know, we roll through the transits for the week, and let me tell you, it's a very busy week. So outside of the full moon, which will be mostly this video, we're going to be breaking down a couple other aspects as the week goes on. So if you stay tuned to my weekly videos, I'm going to touch on a little bit more of the conjunction that is going to be happening with the Sun, Mercury, Cazimi in the sign of Cancer. And I'm also going to be talking a little bit more about some of the squares that will be taking place with the fixed sign. So we'll be breaking it down even further throughout the week. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Do me a favor, hit the subscription button below, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know where are you watching from. Thank you for stopping by. If you would like to become a subscriber or a member to help support the channel, it's always appreciated. Or you can join me during one of my live videos that I do on Saturday evenings, 7 o'clock Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern. We alternate between tarot and astrology. So if you'd like to get a reading, do stop by. All right, guys. So we're going to jump right into it because I have a lot to say. We're going to go day by day, and then we're going to kind of wrap up and finish up by giving you guys 12 different tarot card readings for each and every one of the 12 signs, just so you know what to be expecting for this full moon in Capricorn. It's like, you know, like the meme where like everything's on fire and Elmo's screaming. That's kind of how it feels for me. And I'm not saying this to like freak people out, but there is so much intensity in this particular lunar cycle. Between that new moon we had just a little over a week ago in the sign of Cancer that was conjunct Lilith, and we're wrapping it up with a full moon in conjunction to Pluto. There's definitely a lot going on. Now, I'm pleased to announce, though, leading up to like the 12th or the 13th, Sunday, Monday, things are a little calm. It's going to kick off with the moon in Sagittarius with a trine to Jupiter in Aries. So we're going to be seeing that taking place today, Sunday. Good news, the moon does better in Sagittarius. It's much more optimistic. With trines to Jupiter, we're feeling expansive, and there is some kind of emotional excitement that's going on. So I'm really digging that aspect. Then tomorrow on Monday, we're going to see the moon come into an opposition with Venus in Gemini. So it can have us feeling kind of in our feelings, a little needy, a little emotional. It is getting banged up because it is going to be forming squares also to Neptune and Pisces. So there's something changing and transforming about relationships, how we relate. Having the moon in Sag is going to bring this expansiveness. It's going to bring optimism. And with it oppositions to Venus and Gemini, with Venus building into a trine with Saturn, I think that we're learning that like absence can make the heart grow fonder, or that there is more to relationships than just the physicality. There is the communication and the expansion that we have through connecting intellectually. But whenever the moon is in opposition to Venus, we definitely feel a little needy. There is a sense of needing to reconcile Venus relationships and moon emotions. But both Venus in Gemini and moon in Sag, they need a lot of freedom to roam. So there's like a lot of allowing the energies to kind of flow freely so that way they can kind of come back together. But as they come into squares with Neptune and Pisces, there can be some confusing feelings, right? We see that mutable T-square setting up between Moon, Neptune, and Venus. Then we drop into Tuesday, the 12th, and this is when the moon is going to enter into the sign of Capricorn. So we are coming into that full moon in Capricorn energy. Now we know that traditionally the moon is ruled by Cancer, so when we do see the moon in Capricorn, it's in its fall, so it's a little bit more challenging. We have to do some emotional labor. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and it deals with responsibility, government, obligations, career, older people, especially people who might be in charge. So we think of like bosses, parents, or government or political figures. It's interesting because as I'm filming this a little bit early because I'm actually, as you're watching this, I'm teaching a webinar. I'm filming this on July 7th and just got word that there's all this stuff going on in the UK with the British Prime Minister who's going to be stepping down. So this is part of that full moon energy, right? Full moon in Capricorn, completing roles and responsibilities out in the world in conjunction to Pluto is where there's been lies, deceit, manipulation, or power struggle. So we're already starting to see little remnants of this full moon in Capricorn kind of coming into fruition. I will also say a lot of this has to do with oppositions that we're going to be seeing in the sign of Cancer, which represents the more emotional side, the private life, the home life, the family, that is coming into oppositions with Pluto and Capricorn. So we're going to be highlighting where people don't feel safe, they don't feel secure, they are getting very emotional about where they're living and whether or not they feel like those who are in power are actually doing what they need to be protecting and serving families and homes and countries and individuals. So this will be a long running kind of theme over the next week or so anyway. But as the moon enters into Capricorn, it does have some support because it's going to come into a trine with Mars in Taurus. So that trine with Moon Mars is going to be action oriented. We're going to feel like we need to take logical, practical steps forward to protect ourselves and to get work done. So I'm liking that aspect. I'm not totally wild about the fact that we are going to start seeing squares to Jupiter. So Moon square Jupiter is going to be big emotions, big feelings. Whenever we have cardinal squares, we see bossiness. Okay, I can say that I have some, but when we start to see, planets in Libra, Aries, Cancer, or Capricorn come into squares, there's like friction. And so I'm watching the Moon come into a square with Jupiter and Aries and come into opposition with Mercury. So there's going to be some kind of emotional kind of assertiveness and pushiness, and people who are going to be acting a little bit on edge just coming into the full moon. Big emotions with the Moon square Jupiter though. That's definitely something that we can bank on. Then we're going to move into the 13th where we're actually going to have the full moon that will be taking place in Capricorn. Now technically, let me roll back the clock a little bit. It's going to be happening around 21 degrees of Capricorn. So it's actually coming in, let me give you the exact time here. There we go. July 13th, 2022 at 11:37 a.m. Pacific time. So that's going to be what, 1:37 p.m. Eastern time. Obviously check your time zones, act accordingly. Full moons, we start filling them 2 or 3 days prior. You know, you're going to see about this being active about 2 to 3 days on each side, right? Especially because the full moon is going to be drawn out a little bit until we see like the sun and Mercury fully come out of the opposition with Pluto. So it might even be a little bit longer. Now, full moons, we have them once a month. This is basically wrapping up the most immediate last lunar cycle where we had a new moon in Cancer that was conjunct Lilith, where we were really reevaluating our emotions, our feelings, our security, what's changing within our home and family, what do we need to protect, right? So we've been combating fear, basically, with that conjunction to Venus. Emotional fears, issues with emotional manipulation, that's been a big theme with the conjunction to Lilith, and where we have a tendency to kind of overreact or act out. Now, in the midst of this lunar transit, the last couple of weeks, we've seen the Roe versus Wade get overturned. We've also seen all kinds of things that are going on in relation to people and whether or not they feel safe. We're hearing more about increased home costs. We're hearing more issues in regards to people being able to move or relocate. All of these themes deal with the axis of Cancer and Capricorn. So when this full moon hits, we're going to be seeing it coming in at 21 degrees and change. So that specific degree is a Sagittarius degree. So I'm anticipating we're going to hear a lot about law, legality, justice, right, in regards to global matters, because Sagittarius or 21 is global. We may also hear more in regards to the rights of landlords or tenants. We may hear more about laws regulating what we can or cannot do on our home or our properties, and anything in that regard. There's some sweet and salty aspects. For the most part, even though it's a Hades moon, that's what I'm calling it, even though it's a Hades moon, I think that we're seeing some really positive aspects that's happening between Saturn, and we're also seeing some really positive aspects that's happening between the moon and the North Node. So that is an indication that whatever is unearthed, right, whatever emotional kind of eruptions kind of come about, whatever power struggles manifest, whatever we realize over the next week or so that we just need to be done with, that we need to bury, that we need to kill off, it's very cathartic in a sense of being like, okay, we took out the trash. Okay, so So, and then it will be leading into what will be this next new moon in a couple weeks time in Leo, which is, I mean, the lunar cycles between now and the end of August just get more wild. I like this moon for being able to make changes. I like this moon for being able to confront fear, for being able to detox, purge, and being able to get down to business. That's really what I like this for. Now, some of the major aspects we're going to see outside of the moon conjunct Pluto, which that in itself I think is really significant, right? So it is a full moon, so we want to look at both what the moon is doing. It's always going to make an opposition to the sun. That represents that kind of climax of the full moon that has been brewing for the last 2 weeks, right? But really, this is a full moon that's been brewing really since the better part of like the beginning of January of 2022. So if we think back to the new moon that we had in that period of time, I'm actually going to pull it up really quick on my end. We were in a whole slew, it was a mess. That was a messy period. We had a, here we go. We had a new moon that was, hold on, let me go back because I'm looking at the full moon too. Okay, so the new moon was at 12 degrees of Capricorn, and this was around January 2nd. That's right after New Year's, we had a new moon. But that whole period of time, we had a Venus retrograde, we had Mercury in shadow. There was a lot of planets that were in Capricorn that were in conjunction to Pluto. Capricorn deals with law, responsibility. It also deals with, like I said, who's in charge, but it deals with the past, and it deals with older generations. So there was kind of like a lot of being reevaluated at that time. I think secretly behind the scenes, I have a theory that just looking at the astrology, I think really since November, December of 2020, going into the beginning of 2021, the Supreme Court, I believe, looking at the transits, or the government knew that there was going to be some possibility of trying to overturn anything in regards to reproductive rights, because this was in conjunction to Venus retrograde and Pluto. So that's always about pain, destruction, devastation, control in regards to Venus, the feminine. So then I go to looking at the full moon that happened 2 weeks later. This was on January 17th, 2022. We had a full moon at 27 degrees of Cancer. So once again, we had the sun conjunct Pluto, right? So it's saying like masculine powers taking over, power struggles, people who are really fighting for authority and control being highlighted. So that was more the masculine energy because it involved the sun. This is more feminine. So I'm anticipating with the moon Pluto conjunction, real intense things coming up about women's rights, reproductive rights, home rights, and law and legislation. So I think we're going to hear a lot about that. If you are somebody who has been having Pluto in conjunction to your natal Capricorn moon, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about these emotional tensions and things kind of boiling over. Pluto is like a pressure cooker. So when you have transits in conjunction to Pluto, you got to be careful with Pluto because he'll basically say to you, what are you afraid of? And you'll be like, oh, I'm really afraid of like losing my home. And he goes, poof, there you go. So what's being highlighted with the sun in opposition to the moon and Pluto is where there is literal opposition to masculine dominance or overpowering or trying to overthrow anything in regards to women and health and resources and I think love, really. There's like a challenge, or there's like a war on like love and peace and harmony, because ultimately that's really what Venus wants, right? So bringing it all home, one of the other transits that we're seeing in the midst of this is that the moon in conjunction to Pluto is in a trine to both Uranus. So it's emotionally changing things, shaking things up, right? Earth trines represent physical change. So we see changes with money in the bank. We see physical changes with the earth, with our bodies, with how we're eating, with our resources. So with the moon trine Uranus, it's like innovative ways of being able to make changes and transformations to Taurus related things. We also see the moon in a trine to its own north node. So that's harmonious. Trines are about free-flowing energy. So with the moon in positive aspect to the north node, obviously whatever is changing and transforming in the Capricorn area of your life is to help us come fully into whatever that north node in Taurus is doing. So I've made several videos about this over the last week. My most recent one was really talking about Mars's transit through Taurus, and how it's like this locomotive that's building up steam. And by the time we get to the end of July, going into the beginning of August, Mars and the North Node and Uranus will align, and it's going to like catapult us into the future. right? Because Uranus is the future. So we're going to see timelines speed up. We are going to see all kinds of physical manifestations and changes that we could not imagine globally, financially, you name it. And I believe that this full moon is basically highlighting, saying, hey, this is where we're going. This is what we need to change. You know, get ready. So you're going to see physical changes that are going to happen as a result of this. Love seeing the moon in positive aspect to its own node. Now, if we've got a trine to the north node, that means we have a sextile to the south node. So we've got this aspect going on where the moon and Pluto, which is very, you know, Scorpion-esque, it's very platonic, really deep in terms of emotions, is sextiling the south node. So I look at this and I'm like, hey, maybe we're gonna like clean out some of the swamp with this, because Scorpio is very swampy. Where if there has been corruption, if there has been crime, if there has been greed, manipulation, people taking advantage of things, power playing things, people who have been in bed with like lobbyists and things like that, it might be exposed. We might actually see that it's like clearing something out. Now, we also see on the other side of the moon that the moon and Pluto are forming a sextile to Neptune. So does that mean everything is going to be brought into the light? Not necessarily, but when you have a full moon, certainly we do see really more like emotional events, right? Usually when we see new moons or when we see solar eclipses, it's more action oriented. So this is going to be more emotional. But still, there is a possibility that with the sextile to Neptune, we're dissolving and we're getting rid of things. You see, I see with this moon that it's going to be more like people not talking about why they're stepping down, people not disclosing why it is that they're walking away from positions, or why it is that they no longer want to be affiliated with certain individuals in top positions in government. There might be things that are like covered up, or they're just kind of keeping it hush hush, right? So we may not really know still for a little bit longer as to why some of these things might actually take place. But with the moon that's in a sextile to the south node, I'm liking it. It's giving me like vibes of being able to kind of clear and detoxify and clear out anything karmic, right? Especially because the moon does have to do with the past. The south node has to do with the past. So we're starting to see that we're seeing this breakdown that needs to be cleared out in order for us to be able to kind of build back in a more solid sense. Now we've got the moon that is in opposition to Mercury. And this is a tricky one because this is going to make it difficult for us to emotionally relate. Mercury wants to assess things. It wants to communicate, wants to talk, wants to send messages. Mercury in Cancer is emotional. And it takes action. It says like, hey, this is scary, or I don't like this, or I don't feel safe. Or this is how I like my home. This is how I remember things in the past being. And it's something I've heard coming up a lot. You know, a lot in conversations. I had this conversation with Mike on my podcast the other day. I've heard it with clients. I've heard it with family members. A lot of older people saying things like, this isn't the country I remember, or this isn't how, you know, I remember America being, or back in my day, things weren't this complicated. So there's going to be a lot of reminiscing. With oppositions, we see comparison. So there can be a sense of, with the moon in opposition to Mercury, we're comparing how challenging things are to another time. Or perhaps maybe we're comparing how things are now versus where we've come from. So there is some kind of like reflection on the past and where we are now. But when we see the moon in opposition to Mercury, it's more challenging to get our emotions and our feelings across. Not unusual when you see the moon in Capricorn. There is like a lot of emotional processing, and because it's a sign ruled by Saturn, it'll crystallize, it'll get a little bit hard and harder to kind of get the emotions out. So what we may see just coming off of the full moon with that Mercury that's really coming into opposition of Pluto, it's like we're afraid to emotionally open up, and we're afraid of being taken advantage of, or we're afraid of vulnerability, right? We don't want to show like our soft side. Now, one thing I really like about this moon is that we do see Venus, which is in the sign of Gemini, so it's an immutable air sign, needs its freedom, it likes to share, it likes to kind of flutter about like a butterfly. Venus is in an exact trine to Saturn in Aquarius, so that's like saving grace in the midst of all of this. You know, Venus in an air sign with aspects to Saturn is saying we need to kind of be detached. We need to be detached from the story that always has been in order for us to restructure and figure out where we're going. It's nice to see that during a moon that's ruled by Saturn, it's in harmony to the ruler of the North Node. I believe that this can be a turning point where, through talking about our fears and our vulnerability, it allows us to go deeper into relationships. And not just romantic relationships, especially because Gemini and Aquarius are more like our neighbors, our friends, our family. But still, it can be that turning point when Venus comes into a trine with Saturn, where you have that talk about commitment with someone, or you finally get the confirmation that you got the job and that you're going to get the pay raise, right? Saturn wants to set the stage for stability and ensuring that everything is cemented. And Venus wants to be able to bring more resources and more love and more commitment and more harmony. So there's a need to talk about it in the midst of all of this. I'm also noticing that the moon and Pluto are creating a quincunx to Venus, which is basically saying that through these emotional insecurities and through these fears of change and transformation, it prompts us to actually have these conversations and kind of air it out and get it out in the open. So that way we can finally address our fears and anything that's holding us back from really being able to truly feel safe or secure. So you're going to notice this week that it's like the fears come up and you can either clam up and you can, run back into your shell, or you can face that challenge, sit down, have a conversation, write it out, talk it out, call somebody, send an email and be like, this is what I would like to feel safe. This is what is happening in my life right now. This is what I may not have shared with you. There's going to be a lot of sharing information and things that might be also like more secretive. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. And I'll get to that when we get to the Kazemi in a second. But with Venus trine Saturn, it's going to solidify and help us kind of strengthen future resources and relationships. On the flip side, we also see that Saturn is now moving, because Saturn's retrograde, it's moving backwards, coming back into its square with Uranus in Taurus, right? So, it depends on how you look at it. If you're looking at it from like a traditional standpoint, Saturn trine Venus is beautiful. If you're looking at it from like that modern standpoint, the Saturn square Uranus, it can be a little tense. And we're still dealing with themes, and it's going to be really for the rest of the year. It's going to hit hard in the fall. But the past versus the future, right? Saturn says, this is how things have always been done. These are the rules. And Uranus says, like, screw the rules. We're going to do whatever we want to do. And it's really obstinate and stubborn. And it's almost been like grinding of the gears all of 2021 into 2022, where there's this tug of war between the past and the future. And ultimately, when we see those squares, it's hard to say who's going to win. I think that anything that breaks down wasn't meant to kind of continue moving forward. There are supposed to be some rules and regulations and traditions that we do uphold as we move into the future. We do need some of those structures. So Saturn being in Aquarius is like certain friendships, certain technologies, certain political parties, certain groups of people who come together, businesses even, groups and networks, or the collective groups of people. So there's this challenge that's going on between Aquarius and Uranus, where Uranus is trying to break free and it's trying to move more into a more simplistic life. So more on that. That's going to be happening all year long. It's nothing new. So let's go ahead and take a look at the, one other thing. Saturn is now coming back into a square with the nodes, now that Saturn is retrograde. It's by about 4 degrees, but Saturn, being the ruler of this moon, with a square to the nodes, is representing right now that there is a need to really go deep and start thinking about our goals for the future. And that's what's so strange about the astrology of 2022. It's not like Uranus steals the show and it's just this live wire that's like, we're updating all these things. Saturn is kind of holding it back and helping kind of tether Uranus from kind of breaking free and being totally wild. For example, part of what's going on politically, where you see all of the politicians and the president and all these people who are like, we're trying to kind of keep a hold on inflation, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're trying to raise prices. That's literally Saturn, Aquarius square, Uranus and Taurus. But what's about to happen with all these planets that are going to go into Taurus is you're going to see things get kind of wild and kind of go all over the place. And Saturn does not have as much strength because the opening square is actually in the favor of Taurus. So you're going to see lots of stuff that's going to explode within the Taurus realm, whether it's arts, music, finances, cryptocurrencies, whatever. That is actually going to challenge Saturn's rule. That's what we're going to start seeing here over the next couple of weeks. My point with this is that I think the future for the next couple of weeks is basically saying we have the possibility, we have the potential, if we want, to challenge the status quo and to literally shift our physical reality. This full moon is going to be the precipice of kind of like strategizing and being like, what really needs to break down? What do we really need to do away with in order to facilitate making this happen? So be present for that, guys. Let's read the Sabian symbol so it's 21 degrees of Capricorn, but I'm going to read 22 because we round up. Screen of Prophecy. If you guys aren't aware, there's a link down below to my Amazon. So if you're ever wondering, what am I reading? What books am I referencing? What tarot cards am I using? I've got a whole list of things that I work with. But just for fun, I do want to read you guys just the title of Capricorn 21 because we're building off of this. And with the Sabian symbols, you can read both, but I was always taught to read the rounding up symbol. But Capricorn 21 says it's a relay race. It's about fitness, but the theme is actually about teamwork and the importance of teamwork. So we're building off of that. Okay. So Capricorn 22, a general accepting defeat gracefully. The key word is expectancy. The theme is the chess player. The symbol speaks to exploiting the moment in order to gain a long-range advantage or striking while the iron is hot. The image of a general accepting defeat gracefully suggests a carefully considered and strategic surrender, and it illustrates the principle, lose a battle to win the war. Here, compliance on a practical level is a symbol that indicates a simple giving in to the inevitable or facing the fact that there's no other choice than to yield to the group pressure. There's no chance of winning at this time. Implicit in this symbol is the opportunity to save face by yielding with dignity. At its highest, it represents extraordinary talent for turning every loss into an advantage and every short-term defeat into a long-term victory. Watch for giving in too easily or refusal to admit error. The accent is on strategy. Life sometimes is a game of cards. Your greatest advantage lies in knowing when to hold them and knowing when to fold them. Being willing to wait until you have a better hand to play. Guard against trying to bluff your way through. Someone might call you on it. So it's about strategy, right? I keep thinking, I mean, it could be literal. Sometimes these play out literally. The symbols play out literally. Chess is a game of strategy, right? Sometimes you have to lose a piece in order to be able to kind of gain the advantage on the game board. You may see throughout the next week or two globally, and I have a feeling it's going to be more than just what's going on with the UK Prime Minister. Certain people know that they're not being respected, or that they're losing their stronghold in terms of being able to guide or kind of maneuver things the way that they want. Could be CEOs that step down. It could be leaders that step down. It could be, power plays and things that you're having in your own life where you're kind of looking at things going like, I'm going to pick my battles. I don't really know if I want to challenge this. But watch for that, because just because we're starting to see these smaller kind of victories or losses happen, the grand scheme is that certain people are doing things strategically to make it look as if they're not pushing an agenda, basically. So watch for that. How does that relate to our own lives? I mean, I think building off of the teamwork aspect is like sometimes knowing when to be like, you know what, I'm not the best person for the job, or I actually don't really feel like I can lead the group because I don't really know a lot about what we're talking about, so why doesn't so-and-so do it? A lot of it is about, I think, really not just knowing our place, but knowing when we have to shift gears and we have to bring other people in because we may not be able to handle a situation. And the power, Pluto, in looking at things and going, just because I'm not running things doesn't mean that I'm not capable, right? So we're working a lot on egos. There's also going to be a lot of willingly giving up our control over things and like knowing when we just kind of like need to kind of yield to the universe and let fate step in. All right, so that was the full moon. We'll do the tarot cards in just a second. Let me take you guys through the rest of the week. And the rest of the week, we're still very much building off of this full moon. I cannot stress that enough, because on the 14th of the month, the next day, we're going to see the moon in Aquarius come into a square with Mars and Taurus. So there's some friction, there's some agitation, we're doing things different, we're adjusting, right? We're still kind of dealing with the full moon fallout. That same day, we are also going to see an inconjunct between the Sun and Mercury in Cancer. So there is going to be an inconjunct happening to Saturn. So that's basically saying, like, where are we responding differently emotionally to the shifts and the changes that we're making on a group level, or the shifts that we're making into the future? And how is that making us feel? And when we deal with an inconjunct, basically the two signs are rubbing each other the wrong way. Cancer is emotional, it's reminiscent, it wants to focus on security. Aquarius goes, yeah, but let's do something different. Let's just totally shake things up and let's figure out where we're going. So you're going to feel the gears grind a little bit on this day. Then on the 16th, this is when things get colorful. We're going to have the Sun-Mercury cazimi happening. So this is Mercury that's going to move just ahead of the Sun by about 1 degree, relaying a message. It's an intuitive one at that, so you have to really pay attention. The inconjunct or the quincunx is still very strong during this day, so it's not slowing down anytime soon. It might be kind of going from the 14th through the 15th. I wonder if like the Cazimi message that we get from the universe is as a result of some kind of emotional sacrifice that we have to make. I think it's interesting that the Cazimi is happening while it inconjuncts the moon and Saturn. So moon Saturn is like serious commitment, a reflection on, you know, what we need to change and commit to and kind of buckle down. It comes into a hard angle with Mercury and the sun, and there's this realization that our emotions and where we're actually going, they're not coming together. So we can't feel a certain way and then just keep going through the motions. And if we're going through the motions and we want to make a change, something's got to shift in the way that we're actually moving about out in the world, right? This will be highlighting, because it's in Cancer, emotions, intuition, security, home, hidden feelings, right? Hidden feelings, because actually when the Cazimi is taking place, it's going to be closer to 24 degrees. That'll be in the morning of the 16th. So you're going to start feeling it on the 15th, but it's going to go all the way through the 16th. And you'll lose the inconjunct. So perhaps maybe the breakdown or the feeling kind of uncomfortable happens on the 15th. And then on the 16th, it's like, we got to do something different. I love Cazimi days. Out of the blue, you'll get a message. I think it's going to be very intuitive, especially as I'm watching the Cazimi taking place. The moon is actually moving into Pisces. So it may be a message that comes from the form of a family member, a dream, a psychic reading, an intuitive hit, something like that you're having. And with the trines that are taking place between the sun, Mercury, the moon, and Neptune, between the 16th and the 17th, it's like super watery. I guess the positive thing and a way that we want to work with this energy, right? This is going to be over the weekend, so like the 16th, 17th, is to be by water, be meditating, you know, be mindful of our environment, be playing soft music. If you want to work with your tarot cards, your runes, your crystal balls, if you want to be working with anything spiritual or metaphysical and finding a quiet space and incorporating water, staying hydrated, being by the pool, going to the beach, being in nature, that's how we're going to be able to receive these messages and this information better, personally, I think, especially because we've got the moon and the sun, Mercury and the sun, that's at a 24, so that's a Pisces degree. Pay attention to your moods, pay attention to your dreams. And I would say to make the most of this energy, because water can go one way or the other. You know, it could seep in and we get really emotional and we want to drink a bottle of wine, or we want to lean into binging TV and, you know, smoking pot. You can do that, but if you don't use your Neptune, you lose it. So my advice is, even though a lot of people are going to be feeling like they just want to drop out and they want to check out, try to do something over the weekend that's going to be more so connecting to nature and connecting the element of water, so you can receive those messages, so those dreams come in very clearly. That's my advice. And then on the 17th, this is going to be Sunday, we're going to see Venus is going to enter into Cancer. That's going to be happening in the PM hours. So we've got Venus, Sun, Mercury all hanging out in Cancer. Whoa, that's a lot of water, guys. And Venus, when it moves into Cancer, it's a little softer, sweeter, reminiscent, kind of homey, depending on where it is in your chart. If you're a Venus-based chart, so if you're a Taurus or a Libra, Sun or rising, you're going to feel that ingress. Venus is really beautiful when it's in Cancer. It's very sentimental. It's very much connected to the home. So interior decorating and things like that can be a theme. Unfortunately, what I do start seeing, though, is towards the end of the week, and I'm going to talk about this now so that way you guys aren't surprised when it hits by the time you're watching next week's astro weather. The Sun and Mercury then move to 25 and 27 degrees. So you see Mercury opposes Pluto. So there is going to be some conversation about an ending. Some intense conversation that is really thought-provoking. It can really touch on some sensitive areas in our life. It can be obsessive conversations. You want to watch for snooping. That's something that can happen with Mercury in opposition to Pluto. And it's definitely getting triggered with that moon Neptune. There can be things like, you know, is there something you want to tell me? You know, or I had a dream about this. Like, you know, is this going on? Like, people might kind of have that stuff, those synchronicities that are happening during these transits. But Mercury in opposition to Pluto, because Pluto is the ruler of the South Node, I think is going to bring up this theme about what we're afraid of releasing and letting go of. right? So we may have to say, that's it, I'm done. I've made up my mind. I no longer want this to have power over me anymore. I'm not allowing this to kind of trigger me anymore. And then in the next couple of days, we will see then the sun come into opposition to Pluto. Now that's not really setting up until closer to the 19th. So that'll be next week. But when the sun opposes Pluto, it's like the final battle. We kind of go, that's it, done. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not letting that be something that has power over me anymore. I'm not going to be freaked out about this anymore. And yes, this is next week's astro weather, but you're going to start feeling it as early as Saturday, Sunday. And my guess is on the 19th, which is going to be Tuesday. Because of the moon's ingress into Aries, it's going to square Pluto, it's going to square the sun, and it's going to trigger something that's going to be like killed off or something that's going to end. It's going to be sudden. In the world, we'll usually see like a solar figure pass. We might see like a really significant male actor or celebrity die because the sun is that. We may see that there's a really prominent person who steps down in a position, or somebody who, you know, is kind of knocked off their throne a little bit. The sun opposed Pluto is a pretty intense transit, but that's going to be triggered with a square from the moon. So we'll talk more about that next week, but I just want you guys to know that this is a moon that is a full moon that will really kind of go for an extra couple of days. I'm anticipating, I mean, what, the full moon's on the 13th? That's a week. That's a week extension. Perhaps maybe, you know, you're feeling better after 2 or 3 days, but really be present with the things that are kind of coming up during the full moon. Be mindful of all the themes of Capricorn and Cancer. This is also the very last time that we are going to see the sun in Cancer make an opposition to Pluto and Capricorn. Next spring, Pluto's going to go into Aquarius briefly, but it will go into Aquarius. So this is representing this kind of final closing chapter, and it's a lot about conversations because it's happening at a 27. We have to talk about what's ending. We have to talk about what we're afraid of. We have to talk about you know, issues that we're having that's kind of mentally holding us back from being able to fully move into the future. So lean into some of the trines with the North Node and Uranus. Be willing to make change, physically make change, shake things up a little bit, and start making plans. All right? Okay, so let's get into, I'm going to touch on where this is landing for each and every one of the 12 signs. I'll be pulling a card for you. As always, this is a Western prediction. I'm a Western astrologer. This will be for whole sign. So listen for your ascendant first, then listen for your sun and your moon. Your ascendant's going to tell you what's physically going to happen. Your sun is going to tell you more about your career, your personal goals, and your moon is going to talk about your relationships, your home, your family. So you can listen to all of them. Some of you guys like to listen to your progressed chart. You can do that if you would like. I like to listen to my ascendant personally, and then my sun. I find that that's like the most accurate. So I'll let you know the sign and then which house this is taking place in and the themes that may transpire. Okay, so for Aries and Aries rising, you got a full moon in Capricorn taking place in your natal 10th house. Your 10th house is your career. It's conjunct Pluto. So there's big things happening at work. Some of you guys are going to get promotions with the aspects to Taurus. Some of you guys are going to see that a boss is going to step down, and maybe you're like, whoa, there's an opportunity for me to progress. Some of you guys may make a decision that you're like, that's it, I'm done. I can't work here anymore. I don't have a really great work-life balance. Like, something's being thrown off about my home life because I'm not actually super present for what's going on at home because I'm super consumed with work or some kind of responsibility in the world. So there's something changing and transforming about that. On the flip side, it's conjunct Pluto, ruler of your 8th house. So you can be dealing with a partner that steps away from work, a partner that decides they're done with their work. Something like that can kind of be brewing, but it's big things that are happening in regards to your career. The card that I got for you is the 8 of Coins. So the good news is, right, that you are really focusing on like full steam ahead. You're like, I'm working on something. Maybe it's something really big. Maybe it's going to be a big deal. Maybe it's just you developing something that you're getting ready to launch. It's like, this is the card of the perfectionist, right? Like the artisan, whatever it is that you do. So the perfectionist, the person who is really putting out the best work possible and kind of building up to like a big presentation. So a full moon in your 10th house can be you're going and, you know, giving the proposal, or you're talking about some kind of merger, or you're selling your business, or you're up for a raise. In my opinion, it looks great. You know, an 8 of Coins is talking about more abundance, more resource, more stuff coming to you. But 8s always do deal with change and transformation. So perhaps you're coming up because there's a change going on within the business. For Taurus and Taurus rising, you have got this full moon in Capricorn happening in your natal 9th house. It's a fellow sister sign. So you're going to be really benefiting from the trines from this full moon. Your 9th house deals with travel, perhaps travel for business, law, legality, teaching, education, or publishing. Okay, so here's the cool thing. It's conjunct Pluto. And Pluto rules your 7th house. So perhaps maybe you're completing a program, maybe you're making money off of partnering with somebody in regards to teaching, publishing, or travel. There's the possibility that you're aligning with really powerful people and you're really seeing the potential of what can be going on in regards to your 9th house. Some of you guys will be completing big trips. Some of you guys will be graduating. Some of you guys will also be putting more emphasis on your beliefs at this time, your philosophy, your beliefs revolving around what you could do for a living, what your career is. Lawsuits, legalities, and anything in regards to publishing can also be highlighted at this time. The card that I get is the King of Wands. So it's looking like you're feeling good, you're creative, you're feeling in charge, you're feeling empowered by what you're taking action around. So what you're creating with another person. This can also be a fire sign coming into your life. So it can be an Aries, a Leo, or a Sag who steps in, who's very powerful, who guides you and helps you along with whatever it is that you're working on and can direct you, especially creatively. Now, if you're not working with someone and this is you, you're channeling these energies very well. And I feel like you're feeling not just optimistic, but really confident in what it is that you're putting out into the world. So good on you, Taurus. For Gemini and Gemini rising, we have got a full moon happening in Capricorn in your 8th house. So that's intense. That is intense. Your 8th house, other people's resources, taxes, death, inheritance. But being that it's in Capricorn, I feel like it's some kind of conclusion. Maybe you have to pay something off. Maybe you're handling a debt, paying off a credit card, a loan. There's a decision in regards to that. I would also say that there can be health results that can come from this because it's including Pluto, which is the Lord of your 6th house. Watch for secrets being exposed in the workspace. Budgeting issues at work can be happening as well. If you've been dealing with some kind of health-related issue and hoping to get results, you might. And this is also just a house that deals with rebirth. So maybe you're focusing on letting go of old habits, cleansing, detoxifying, anything like that, especially in regards to your health or your diet. That's something else that comes up for Gemini quite a bit. The card that I get for you is the Chariot. So it makes me feel like organization is key. I mean, this does deal with homes and stuff. So part of me is wondering, like, is there something going on in regards to like money in homes? Are you trying to refinance something? Are you trying to pay something off? Or you're trying to see what you can manage in terms of a move? In your 8th house, this deals with other people's resources. I'm also wondering if you're like really adamant about wanting to streamline your finances with a partner, finding somebody who can help you actually apply for a loan, finding somebody who can help you kind of achieve your financial goals of being able to get ahead, not just, you know, surviving, but like actually thriving, right? The Chariot does talk about cars and vehicles too. So even though it doesn't really factor into the astrology, it could be like talking about, are you buying a vehicle, selling a vehicle? You want to pay something off if you're looking into financing. That could be something that's going on as well. For Cancer and Cancer rising, this is a full moon taking place in Capricorn in your 8th house. And similar to Aries and Libra and also Capricorn, for all of the cardinal signs, it's happening in angular houses. It's intense, y'all, especially if you have any placements that's between, let's say, 20 and 23 degrees of the cardinal signs. So Cancer, a full moon in your 7th house, right? Big decisions in regards to relationships. And you've got all these planets moving into your sign in your 1st house. That's going to be opposing the moon. It's going to be opposing Pluto. So really what it's bringing up is the theme of, am I in love with this person? You know, is this a good relationship for me? Is this overpowering or overshadowing me? Are they mean? Are they toxic? Or are we learning to come together? Can I feel like I can express myself authentically and tell them how I feel without them getting angry or erupting? Am I learning to move out of old relationship patterns that are not good for me? The list goes on. And this can be business partners, right? Because it's Capricorn. This can be bosses because it's Capricorn. This can be romantic partners as well, or spouses or boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever. But it is about you and other people. The 7th house deals with others. I feel like it's important for you to come out and say what you've been thinking, or it's important for you to come out and like really tell somebody what's on your mind. because you've been holding back a little bit. And with some of the transits that are coming up, it's like a now or never thing. You know, you really, really do benefit from kind of speaking up and saying how you're feeling and not letting other people's thoughts or opinions limit your ability to share. So if you need to end a relationship, you will, right? That can happen with a full moon in the 7th house. If you need to go and hash all this stuff out so you can go deeper into partnership, so be it. But don't be withholding how you're feeling. The card that I get is the 9 of Swords, which means you're still anxious, you're worried, you're concerned. You don't know how something's going to pan out. You don't know how something's going to shake out. You have anxiety about saying something to someone. You could be losing sleep over it. Cancer. Do not delay this. It's really important that you get out with whatever it is that you have to say, so you feel like you can get off your chest, so you feel like you can relax, and you can finally know which end of the spectrum things are going to fall on in regards to your relationship with someone else. For Leo and Leo rising, you've got a full moon in Cap happening in your natal 6th house. So this deals with health, wellness, pets, your routine, your coworkers, your office space. Lots about coworkers, organization, health, whether or not you're sticking to health routines, big changes in your schedule. You might be feeling wiped out. You got a lot of planets right now, Leo, in Cancer. You're preparing for your birthday, so there's this sense of feeling wiped out and like really being in your feelings and needing privacy, and I could see that it's affecting your schedule. You might need to take time off because you're dealing with a health crisis, dealing with a family crisis, because you're needing to move, and it's going to affect your schedule, and you're going to realize, wow, my schedule needs to change. Watch out for drama or issues with coworkers or gossiping with coworkers, power struggles with coworkers. I could see that happening, and you don't want to allow your emotions to affect your physical health or your routines, especially dietary stuff or fitness or health if you've been working really hard. Some of you guys might feel like you're on the precipice of falling off and falling back into bad habits as well. So that's something that you want to watch for. Don't let emotional stuff trigger you and kind of send you back into a spiral. The card that I got is the 4 of Wands. So it's actually saying whatever it is that's changing your schedule, it's positive stuff. This is like birthday parties, celebrations, get-togethers, what have you. But I feel like still, even though this is a very positive card, be mindful that there can be like overdoing it. And it can be that you need more time off, or you need time, you know, downtime to kind of recoup. And then you're like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I shouldn't have, I kind of took it a little too far. 4 of Wands talks about celebrations, get-togethers, parties, birthdays. It also talks about celebrating where you are right now and how far you've come, and appreciation for what you have been able to achieve. For some of you, it might be like, I've been sober for X amount of months or years. For other people, it's like, I finally cut sugar, or I cut the bad job, or the toxic relationship. So got to take your wins when you can and congratulate yourself for what you have achieved. For Virgo and Virgo rising, you have got a full moon in Capricorn taking place in a sister sign in your natal 5th house. 5th house deals with romance, children, passion, dating, love, sex, gambling, all the fun stuff. And a full moon that is in your 5th house in conjunction to Pluto, your 3rd house lord, makes me wonder if you're having a serious conversation, a heart-to-heart with somebody about what the future holds and whether or not that person is on the same page as you. Full moons in your 5th can produce children or I love yous, so just a heads up for that. I feel like it's a really important and intense exchange in a conversation that you're either going to have with a younger person, a romantic partner, or maybe even a child. The topic of children or I love yous, like I said, can come up. There's going to be aspects that are also happening to Uranus in your natal 9th house. And so I think the conversation could also be about traveling, the future of relationships, commitment, whether or not you guys want to book a trip and go somewhere that you've never been before and kind of break out of the status quo and do something different, and switch your schedule up a little bit. It is possible also that this is a really positive time for those of you guys who are self-employed, or somebody who's getting ready to launch a creative project, something you've been working really hard on, especially if it's anything that has to do with like a side hustle that you could be turning into a business that you've been perfecting, okay? The card that I get is the Lovers. So I think this is more about sex and romance. I think this is more about divine union. It can be about physical connections, really starting to get to know somebody, and really like this beginning phase of like our deep, intimate relationship. Now, some speculate that the Lovers card is about twin flames. I could see it as just finding somebody that you're like, whoa, there's a really intense match here. There's a lot of chemistry here. And I see a lot of similarities in this person, and I really feel like this could be a really good union. But this could also be a card that's talking about falling in love. So let me know, Virgo. I hope that's the case for you. For Libra and Libra rising, you've got a full moon in Capricorn happening in your natal 4th house. Libra, same with Aries and Cancer. This is an intense one, so buckle up. A full moon in your 4th house is going to bring up the theme of the past, roots, family, home, anything in regards to roommates, where you're living, domestic stuff. Now it's going to be in conjunction of Pluto. Pluto is the ruler of your 2nd house. To me, Libra, it seems like there's lots of conversation about home, money, values, and resources. A full moon in your 4th could have you selling your home, talking about selling your home, moving. It could also bring up the themes of how much money you owe because of the conjunction to Pluto. Power struggles with family members are possible. I'm not going to say likely, but it's possible. But this is not anything new for you. We're also seeing that in the midst of this, you've got a ton of planets that are moving through Cancer, through your 10th house. So you're feeling the pressure of being torn between your responsibility out in the world, nurturing your career, possibly like parenting themes, and then also like all of the responsibility at home. And I get the impression with this full moon that it's like wrapping something up that's been a long-standing power struggle that you've had with your home or your family. If it's been really challenging to sell a house, if it's been really hard dealing with a parent, if you have to say goodbye to a place or to a person, it may happen around the time of the full moon, especially because it will be trining the North Node in your 8th house. It will be trining Uranus in your 8th house. It may not happen right away, but it may happen later in the month as we see conjunctions to the North Node. So let's see what the cards have to say for you, Libra. Queen of Swords. Well, this is you, so that's good news. The element of air. To me, I feel like this is about you just being really direct about when something's done, it's done, or really direct about the fact that you no longer want to get involved in like all of this emotional toxicity. It can be that you have to have boundaries. It can mean that you have to be initiating conversations and telling people you're done. You may have to sign things or talk to somebody about signing legal documents or anything in relation to family, trust, wills, estates, or anything in regards to real estate. So watch for that. Watch your words, be direct, and think everything through as you're communicating with some of these people. For Scorpio and Scorpio rising, well, you have got a full moon in Capricorn happening in your natal 3rd house. The 3rd house deals with Capricorn. It can be business. So if you have like an online business, if you're practicing anything in regards to teaching or education, if there's anything that is coming up about you and a sibling, talking to a sibling about work, anything in pertaining to vehicles, there can be issues with cars with a full moon in your 3rd house. But I think it might be moving, Scorpio. I have the feeling with the full moon conjunct Pluto. Pluto is your chart ruler. There can be conversations that you're having about the possibility of moving and what the bigger picture looks like with where you're going to be living long term. Perhaps you get an intense phone call from a sibling. They want to talk to you. Perhaps your car breaks down. These are other things that can happen. I'm sorry, I don't like saying this, but it's true. And also the moon is the ruler of your natal 9th house. So I feel like it's this kind of like, do we stay here and buy a new car? Do we save the money to move? Who could help us move? How can I talk to somebody about helping me expand a website? Maybe you're starting a program. Maybe you're completing a program. Maybe you're launching or you're teaching something yourself. The 3rd house is kind of like a grab bag. But under the guise of Capricorn, it's something that's about long-term planning. So it's going to take you a long time to kind of complete this, or maybe you've been working on completing this for some time. So let's see. There could be some real intensity with neighbors, though. Watch out. There could be some weirdness with neighbors. There could be some issues going on around the neighborhood or the property. And I would be really cautious revolving around either talking to these people or talking to siblings, because there can be a really intense exchange. Card that I get is Justice. Balance. But justice coming up makes me feel like a lot of this is talking about fairness and equality in how you're communicating with other people. Obviously, Pluto being in your 3rd house, Scorpio, it has not been easy because you have seen recently that there's been a little bit of impatience going on, or some intensity that's been kind of going on. I also get the impression with this that this is also talking about relationships. So relationships with siblings perhaps gets highlighted during this time period. Documents, legal documents, anything in regards to relationships, talking to partners about needing more assistance, especially anything pertaining to the 3rd house. So if you're wanting to work together, move together, things like that. you need to find balance. It's about kind of finding that balance in communication. And perhaps the full moon is really going to be highlighting that in order to fully kind of paint a picture of where your life is going, taking other people's perspective into consideration is necessary to have much more harmony and support. Okay, so keep that in mind. For Sag and Sag rising, you got a full moon happening in Capricorn in your natal second house. This is all about money. So the month kicked off a couple weeks ago with you reflecting on that new moon in Cancer about, okay, well, where are my resources coming from? How can I get ahead of stuff? How can I save more money? How can I be more resourceful when it comes to my cost of living? Now we've got a full moon conjunct Pluto. So you may be spending a bit of money. There may be a sense of you having to put more money into a business. There may be some larger purchases that you're making, but there can also be some large payouts. But I have a feeling that you're a little anxious about resources and money because the full moon in your second house is conjunct Pluto, which is your 12th house lord. Now, maybe you're working really hard behind the scenes, putting money into something business-wise, and you're allowing it to come into fruition, but you might have some unexpected expenses, okay? So be prepared for that. Unexpected expenses are very likely for both Gemini and Sagittarius as a result of this full moon. But the second house could bring a nice paycheck, a chunk of change, something can come in. But I think about the transits going through your 4th house, and even though money's coming in, your cost of living might be higher, right? You may have a situation where you're paying higher taxes, or maybe you get money in and you're having to pay stuff off. So be mindful of money in, money out. But this is going to be a real reflection on how hard you've been working in regards to your financial success, really for the better part of the last 6 months. Card that I get is the 4 of Cups. So to me, this feels like a little bit of disappointment in getting something but not fully getting what you thought you were going to get. So it's like, I get the bonus and it's less than I thought. You know, I finally got paid, but they can't pay me everything completely, right? 4 of Cups is that, unfortunately, things happening or setbacks happening. I'm not surprised because of the conjunction of Pluto, you might be disappointed that something that you wanted is going to cost more than you thought it was, or that you're going to have to be paying extra fees. Be careful with the 4 of Cups that this is like also not falling into the traps of Pluto. I could see Pluto in the second house is like thinking that you'll be fulfilled when you have money, or you have the car, or you have the bag, and then you have it and you're like, I'm still not happy. That's the trappings of Pluto in the second house, that once you have the things, it doesn't necessarily mean that you feel fulfilled. So there can be this sense of being like, I have everything, but it doesn't feel the way they thought it was going to feel. Not getting too fixated on the materialism, okay? For Cap and Cap rising, well, this is your party, baby. Part of me wonders if Cap risings are just going to burn it all down, right? Or if this is like your moment of empowerment. I think of all the planets that are going through your 7th, where partners can be challenging who you are. You have the opportunity to turn over a new leaf. You could be really, really intense and mean, and there can be, with this full moon, if you're a Cap rising conjunct Pluto, that you're just really emotionally reactionary, right? And you're feeling threatened by people who are challenging you, and you have your walls up. Or you can use Pluto to transform and change and come into your power and choose to align with people who are going to love your passion, love your intensity, love your dedication. You're going to be too much for some people with Pluto in your sign, right? But you're almost done. And I think that I'm loving the trines to Taurus and the North Node in your 5th house. I feel like you're finally saying what it is that you want. Now, there can be physical changes that are going on with you, physical changes with your body. Watch out with the conjunction of Pluto, because there can be major transformations that can be more challenging, right? Like surgical things can pop up. You can also see that you're becoming so intense about what your goals are that other people get a little overwhelmed. But I think that Pluto being involved in this can be a little intoxicating. You just want to watch for issues with relationships, because partners are going to come in with all that Cancer, and it's going to test you to see if you're going to open up or if you're going to put up your walls, right? Big transformations, hair, clothes, makeup, things like that can happen. So you can be finally seeing the results of having worked really hard for the last 6 months on self-love, and more dedication to just you and your physical body in general. The card that I got for you is the Knight of Swords. I have a feeling you're going to be a little sassy. This makes me feel like you have like an announcement to make, and you're gonna like tell people like, this is what I want, this is what I'm doing, and this is where I'm going. This can be having an intense exchange. This can be needing to tell the world something. This can be relaying something. A full moon in your first house or in your sign can bring a lot of attention to you. So if you're looking to do a campaign or a launch or something like that, that can definitely bring a lot of attention as well. Look for assistance that might come from air signs. So it can be Geminis or Libras or Aquariuses that can help you with this process. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, you got a full moon in Capricorn happening in your natal 12th house. It's hidden, it's intense. Maybe you're reflecting on the past or thinking about the past a lot, working hard in a back room on a project, slaving away, working night and day, burning the candle at both ends. With the conjunction to Pluto, it makes me feel like you're clearing something out, like there's the beginning of new projects, but like you're wrapping something up about an old job or responsibility in the world. So you're quietly or silently kind of shifting into a new title. A full moon in the 12th can have you up, awake, sleep disturbances, you're up all night, things like that. With the conjunction to Pluto, I feel like it's about you going through like a grieving process and letting go of an old identity, right? Because Pluto is the ruler of your 10th. Maybe you get pulled into a back room, you have a meeting with your boss, and you tell your boss, you know what, I'm not liking this anymore, and they're like, okay, you can leave. Something like that can happen with a full moon in your 12th. On the flip side, it can be very spiritual, and there can be a real strong connection to the other side. So I think of like Pluto 12th house full moon is like seances and talking to a medium and connecting to the spiritual realm and giving offers to your ancestors, or having a dream and like a grandparent comes in and they tell you exactly what to do. These are things that can happen during a full moon in Capricorn in your 12th house. Can have you feeling a little bit like you're bugging out though. So if you do need to feel like you need more rest and recuperation, you can do that. Watch for overworking. I have a feeling there can be overworking to the point of like exhaustion and really burning yourself out. The Wheel of Fortune. What a positive card this is for you. I think this is really saying that cycles are ending, but new cycles are beginning. Fortune is kind of falling into your lap or going into your favor. Opportunity for travel, perhaps, maybe I could see that. Astral travel or literal travel, travel for business or connecting with people in other places. But overall, just like a real nice period of good fortune and good luck and things that are really kind of expanding for you. And last but not least, we got Pisces and Pisces rising. You got a full moon in Capricorn happening in your natal 11th house, which is like party, networking, seeing friends. It can be work parties, hanging out with colleagues. A full moon in the 11th is a good time, but there's also, like I said, business opportunities because it's in the sign of Capricorn. And it does have a conjunction to Pluto, which happens to be your 9th house lord. So it makes me feel like you're mixing with people from different cultures and different backgrounds. Maybe you're mixing with people who are taking courses or classes or you're going to school with in some capacity. And this full moon is in positive aspect to Neptune in your sign. So it's almost like your dreams are coming true. You're starting to see your visions that are aligning. You've got people who are celebrating you. You're celebrating other things. So parties and get-togethers can happen. And you've got a ton of planets that are also aligning in Cancer in your natal 5th house. So it makes me wonder, like, did your friend set you up with somebody? Are you meeting somebody new romantically? Are you connecting with somebody that's just fresh? And are you starting to see if your goals align with that other person? And there can be a lot of emphasis just on dating and relationships in general for the month ahead. But for the most part, you have one of the most beneficial aspects with the sextile to your sign, and then also you've got trines happening from Cancer. It makes me feel like if your goals have been dating, relationships, children, anything in regards to creative projects, that's all coming to fruition. The downside of a full moon conjunct Pluto in your 11th is just watch. There can be a little strife that can be happening with friendships that, there can be like a wrapping up of a friendship or like deciding that you don't want to work with somebody and it's better not to mix friends and kind of business. Or there can be a little bit of like tension or jealousy going on with a friend. Card that I get is the 7 of Wands. I feel like it's more like competitiveness. Like you want to watch or guard against like comparing yourself to friends or other people. That's the one thing I would watch out for. Really take your time. There's no need to be defensive. If you find yourself at a dinner party talking about what's going on with you professionally and other people are trying to one-up you, like don't engage. Don't do that. There's no need for you to do that. I see you standing your ground, and I also see that a lot of this is about really showing up and feeling like you're getting the recognition that you have really worked hard on earning when it comes to your professional goals and your social standings, okay? Guys, I'm really excited to see what happens when this full moon hits. You'll have to let me know how it plays out for you. I just want to give you guys a couple little notes for the week ahead. We've got a live show that's going to be on the 16th. We're going to be doing live tarot readings, and that's going to be on the channel. I'll post the link later, 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to get a tarot card reading, you can show up. We can hang out, spend Saturday night together. Also, my new live tarot courses are actually going to be starting very soon. I'm going to start teaching this on the 17th. So if you click my links below, you go to my website, it'll take you to all of my courses. You can sign up to start learning tarot with me. I'm going to be teaching it on Sunday mornings, Pacific time, starting on the 17th. 5 consecutive classes. If you sign up, I'm doing $100 off the live courses, so it's a really great deal. I make it super affordable so we can have students come and be a part of my digital classroom live, and I'm really excited to be doing this. Some of you guys already took the Astrology 101 with me. If you didn't and you missed it, it's packaged, and you can purchase that as well if you would like to learn beginner's astrology. Check out the Midheaven podcast. We're putting out a new video every Monday. We've got some new stuff coming up on the channel. We also have been talking about the full moon in Capricorn, and we are also going to be talking about some of the bigger transits with North Node and Uranus that are taking place. I'll be back this week. I want to do a video on the Sun, Mercury, Cazimi. I feel like it's important to come back and talk about that, and we'll touch on some of the other aspects that are taking place for the week ahead. Otherwise, thank you guys so much. I appreciate your likes, your comments, your shares. Give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know how you're feeling with this energy, what you're doing for the full moon, and what you anticipate. Otherwise, I will see all of you guys very soon. Enjoy the rest of your week and take care.